Good afternoon, Richland College. You're listening to K-Ducks Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. At least from 2 to 3 on Wednesdays. Views expressed on the show are our own, unless otherwise stated, and do not reflect the opinion of K-Ducks Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. Welcome back, folks. This is the Philosophy Club once again. Well, I should say the Philosophy Club Radio Hour, which is an extension of the Philosophy Club proper. The Philosophy Club proper meets every Tuesday from 2 to 3 in room EO76. And, of course, on Wednesday, we recap what we talked about on Tuesday and extend the conversation even further. And, again, this is K-Duck Studios, EO11, El Paso 11. How's it going, guys?
Good.
We got a nice mix here of old and new. Let's get right into it. Shoot, let's go around the room and make introductions. We'll start on the far side with Brian.
Okay.
And by the way, Brian, introduce not only yourself, but any club affiliations you might have or anything like that.
My name is Brian. I'm getting my basics out of the way, but I do plan on, majoring in communications, minoring in philosophy, and hopefully taking that to law school.
Awesome.
I'm part of other clubs as well, more specifically the debate club. We meet every Thursdays from 4 to 5 at C246, where we debate a variety of topics, including philosophical topics. And I also do theater.
Yeah, welcome. Brian debated our Philosophy Club secretary, Julio, back in September, a public debate in the cafeteria there. It was fun.
It was about the ethics of the death penalty.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I believe Brian won that debate.
Yes. No, but Julio was definitely a worthy opponent.
Excellent.
Shout out Julio.
Shout out Julio.
Yeah, shout out to
Shout out all worthy opponents. Who do we have next to you? Who is that guy?
Hello everyone, I'm Ali. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome back, Ali.
That was a quick introduction.
Keep it simple.
Keep it short and simple.
Indeed. Get right to the issues. We don't need introduction. Who's next? Who is that?
My name is Jeffrey Manzi.
I was wondering about that. I was wondering who you were going to be today.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. I've been trying out some plastic surgery, and yeah, so it's just a little thing that I've been trying out.
Just a little tan.
Just a little tan.
Just a bit.
I gotta say, you are much handsomer than a real person. Because, anyways, moving right along. I expected somebody to jump in. I thought I was starting a pile on it, and nobody said anything. Anyways, yeah, that's
Okay.
Come on, Manzi. Let's get it.
Who's next?
Okay. That's me. Hi, my name is Aisha Gul, and I introduced myself before, but I am a part of Honors Student Organization, which is the Honors Academy's student organization, and we're having a meeting tomorrow at 5 in Sabine 118. Just stop by. We're going to have some snacks, and we're going to talk about the events that we will have in November, which are we will be having 2 guest speakers from SMU, Cox Business School, and they will be talking about what you could do with your business degree in the future, and also they will be answering some questions about SMU. And also we will be having a Friendsgiving with, it's going to be with like a lot of clubs, Black Student Association, African Student Association, Asian Student Association, Intercultural Women's Society, and we're still working on some other clubs too. So just, if you want to collaborate, just email us, and it's going to be fun. So
Hey,
yeah.
Thank you for that. Hey, here's a club that might be interested. The Philosophy Club.
Oh, I actually told you guys, remember? But yeah.
You said free snacks at the meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
Free snack.
No, that's good to
And
know.
the Friendsgiving is like a Thanksgiving, but like the Richland version of it, like with a lot of different students from different backgrounds, and we will have, they will bring their own food, so we will have our Friendsgiving.
Like a potluck, yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we have here?
It's your boy Jay Breezy J for the
You're
West Side.
disgusting. Leave it. That's terrible. We don't even know what your name is.
Oh my God.
Dementia, Byron.
We don't even know what your name is.
We
You're forgetting
blew-
yourself.
We just
What's
blew
your
the
name?
headphones.
You forgot yourself.
What's your name?
Who are you?
Okay.
He did say his
That's a
name.
philosophical question.
Jay Bowser, something like that. That's terrible.
And who were you?
Jay.
Manzi.
Oh, Ramsey. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, my name, I'm Uche. I'm the
Do you know
president
his
of the
last
philosophy
name?
What
club.
is Uche's last
Do you
name?
know? Yeah.
Well, yeah, he was a former student, so I do know his last name.
What's his last name?
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Iwator. Iwator.
What?
I'm the only one who
Iwator
knows
what?
your last name.
Oh,
I need more sound in my cans, Jack. That's radio speak for headphones.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's get into this.
That's the
This
wrong.
was-
You can see it right on here.
Guys, this topic, I'm eager to get to it because I think it's so very fascinating, and it's not often that the Philosophy Club entertains topics that are maybe more typically suited to other disciplines. But of course, the topic of insanity, or sanity, depending, clearly psychological and yet very philosophical. I thought yesterday's meeting was really good, and I'm sad I had to duck out a little early and miss the group discussion. But yeah, I don't have my duck whistle.
Oh.
Darn. Quack. Gotta get a quack.
Quack.
There you go, Ollie. Thank you.
Ollie the man.
And so I guess we can begin. We can either do a straight recap, or we can try to just use as a springboard one of the more popular talking points, and not necessarily be all inclusive with the recap. What do you guys feel like doing? Is there anything in particular that you wanted to go over, to review, or anything like that? Or
Oh, we
anything-
should introduce the topic, which was sanity.
I said sanity. I said
Thank
that.
you, Efren.
No,
I said it.
Yes, he did.
Brian, thank you.
Okay,
I got
okay,
you.
my bad.
you're old.
You're doing a good job, Uche.
Wake up, Manzi.
Okay, but yeah. So the topic was suggested by a guy named Jake Rivera. He's a club member. He's been coming this semester, and he basically set it up as his main questions were, what is sanity and who determines sanity? Because things in the past have been considered insane, like something like homosexuality. If you had a child that was homosexual, at one point in time, you could have said, that boy needs help or that girl needs help. They need to be fixed. They need to be recovered. And he wanted to, and nowadays, it's not seen that way anymore. It's not seen as a sickness that needs to be healed, but it's just seen as something that's normal. It's not insane anymore. And he was basically asking, why do people see things this way? Why does something that's considered insane in 30 years change into something that's considered sane? That's the question that he was basically asking. And who orchestrates the change?
Yeah, and I think that last part of that question too, I think is so important, and that seemed to be what I think people were chewing on to some extent. Where does everybody seem to be in agreement? Correct me if I'm wrong here. Everybody seemed more or less in agreement with the fact that the standards of sanity change over time. They're relative to
Yeah.
certain norms, but yeah, I don't know if we ever dug quite so deeply into, again, who exactly are the quote unquote sanity experts, and in what ways has definitions of sanity changed, especially in light of things like, the rise of pharmaceutical companies.
Can I bring my own definition and get a doctor before my name?
Sure.
Okay. So I think sanity and insanity are two different human behaviors, and I think they exist in a normal person as well, both of them. But it depends upon the situation, because a person can behave differently in different situations. So you cannot say that only an abnormal person will exhibit an insane behavior. What do you think about that?
That's interesting. I mean, yeah. Do y'all have any thoughts? So I guess kind of what you're saying then is, for an insane person to behave normally, to behave sanely, would be insane. Something along those lines.
I mean, so something I noticed in our discussion yesterday is that we could not come to not everyone could come to a full agreement of what sanity or insanity is.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, I think it's just because it changes, the meaning changes, just like I believe insane is something else, and you believe it's something else. So I think it just depends on the person and their perspective.
No, I feel like another aspect to that, though, is different cultures
Yeah.
in different countries. It's more than just time.
Mhm.
And as a matter of fact, I feel like something that many people often overlook is how about insanity individually, and not necessarily in relation to other members of society. I brought this up yesterday using the example of Call of Cthulhu, where when a character sees something very horrifying, he has to roll for sanity.
Violate.
Yes. Bye.
See you later, Ellie. Thanks for stopping by.
Has to roll for sanity.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
Oh wow, jeez, he just took the executive.
Yeah,
seat.
he just.
I thought you
wow.
were leaving. Next, he's coming for your seat, man.
He just hopped you in
I
the
mean,
chest
you
there.
You mean yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. If he rolls below the number of intelligence the person has, then the person fully comprehended what he saw and now goes a little insane. If he rolls above that, that means it was too complicated for him to comprehend, and he just kind of goes on life as normally. So, as hilarious as that might sound, I feel like there is some truth to that, though.
Definitely.
Yeah, so how about sanity when it comes into yourself and your understanding of the world, as opposed to society versus man?
Yeah, and so I love that question, and I think, in certain indirect ways, people were trying to get at it, I think. I would say this, and of course, Brian, keep in mind the Heidegger discussion we were having in class earlier. This idea of being constantly plugged into this network of pre-established meaning, prefigured meaning. I think there's no greater understanding of, or I should say manifestation of that community-wise than the norms of a society. And so it seems like you need others, you need the public, you need the community to use as a rubric by which to judge your own state of normalcy or sanity. And that's why I think as the community changes and its sensibilities change, maybe certain standards of sanity change. But I have a hard time wondering, because this is what's so fascinating to me. I don't even think there's such a thing as sanity without people and variations thereof. Do you know what I mean? Or is sanity completely tied to rationality?
I mean, so when people get locked up in solitary confinement, right, they need other people to interact with, and if they stay in solitary confinement for too long, they might be permanently mentally broken. So while I do see where you're getting at, I do feel like insanity does exist, even if you isolate a man from society.
Yeah, but I think, good point. I wonder, though, if it only works because that person has already been
they've been
exposed to
stripped of it.
society. And so they know what they're missing, and that's what's breaking them.
Well, allow me to counter that.
No, please do.
I remember when we discussed the animal side in philosophy a couple of weeks back, right? And Maddie brought up feral children. Would we consider feral children insane? Because for our listeners who aren't fully aware of the concept of feral children, basically they weren't raised by parents. They weren't raised by anyone. Basically, they were just kind of
They weren't educated.
Yeah, they weren't educated or cut off from society, and when the feral children were found, they could hardly speak. They moved in very animal-like ways, and it was very hard to try to civilize them, quote unquote. But so would we consider feral children insane?
Yeah.
I think you could.
I do agree with you, Uche, but I mean, Mancy, sorry.
That was going to confuse
What do
me
you
so
think,
bad.
Uche?
Well, okay, as the president of the Philosophy Club, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that I think, because again, you have to consider who sets the standards of sanity. And it's not as though rationality is, objectively speaking, perhaps the standards of sanity, but rather that was once a standard that society that agreed on, and that might change over time. I think according to society's standards, if you are unable to rationally articulate yourself, then there's some degree of insanity involved there. I just think that's how society looks at it. And if you want to go deeper into feral children, I mean, it's hard to imagine a more tragic situation if you're born as a human being and then you never are able or given the opportunity, most often very tragically, to develop what it is that makes you uniquely human, which is, again, rationality. Sanity itself, though, I think it's not a coincidence that it kind of, the term itself rises with the rise of psychology, and sociology shortly thereafter. I think it is very much a public concept that we can then internalize or individualize via self-appropriating. But I don't see how if a human being were to live in isolation, I don't understand even if he were to go insane, if he would know what to call it. That makes sense?
No, well, people say that people who are insane don't know they're insane.
That's true.
They think they're completely normal and
How
think that
horrifying is
everyone
that?
and think that everyone else is odd. So I don't think even insane people fully grasp the concept of sanity versus insanity. And we tried to say that, oh no, we're saying we're definitely not, psychopaths or sociopaths, but then we realized that we relate way too much to Dennis Reynolds.
Who was that said you are how the society how they see you? Was it Sartre?
No. Sartre would say that we are responsible for how people see us, but as far as that we are a product of our environment, Heidegger.
Heidegger?
Heidegger,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and you bring up an interesting point. You know, it's up to the sane to decide who's insane. It's up to the healthy to decide
it's-
who's
But
sane.
who decides they are
No,
sane?
It's the
more-
majority.
Yeah, more importantly, do the sane are the sane possibly insane and they
They
don't
can be.
realize it?
Like
Yeah.
in Nazi Germany, when the movement was to ostracize or to kill Jewish people, but that was the norm at the time, or that was the movement that they were going for at the time. And you look back at it, you can go to the country now and you can look back at it, you can talk to the citizens about it. I'm sure that they think that was an insane movement, but you go back in time and the same people or the same country would have called it righteous or something like that. It's just what's accepted at the time by the majority of people, and that becomes the standard. And if you deviate from the standard, then you are considered insane.
Now, I feel like it's important to look at the context of the Holocaust, though, because that was right after World War I, where Germany was basically blamed for everything. They obtained a huge amount of debt that they could not possibly afford to pay off, and their citizens were literally starving to death. So Hitler took advantage of that and was like, hey, this is not our fault. This is the fault of these other countries. It's the fault of the Jewish people. We need to, we basically need to take everything back. And that reminds me of what we talked about yesterday, where someone, I don't know who mentioned it, but said that maybe it's not insane if you can logically piece it together. So we could logically piece together why the Holocaust happened.
I think that was Manzi.
Do you
Honestly,
think so?
Yes.
Wait, which who?
the real Jeff Manzi.
Okay.
Will the real Jeff
Now I'm
Manzi
co-
please stand up?
I'm right.
I'm
here.
confused
Yeah, I'm
now.
confused too.
I think, I think that's, look, I mean, the Holocaust is so, it's unique in a lot of ways, and its atrocity and its degree of evilness. And so, again, even trying to find a logic behind that.
It was Braden, I think. That's who said it.
Yeah, I don't know who really said it. But I did say this, that if you can, and this was my point, if you can piece together the logic behind somebody else's actions and behavior, even if they cannot see it themselves, if you can glean some sort of consistency to it, then it can't be completely insane. It's not pure delirium. There was an example I wanted to bring up yesterday that I didn't get around to. This example of certain psychologists and psychoanalytic philosophers, specifically one such as Carl Jung. Are we playing musical chairs today?
No.
What is going on?
I don't know what's happening, but
Weird when I can't see who's talking.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah, literally. Hello. And so I think I think this might be something worth our consideration. Psychologists went to mental wards, and they studied. I don't know if you're familiar with art therapy, but they studied the art that clinically insane people were producing, and they came to find that some of the art that these insane people were producing were actually like very.
Extra.
No. You think that they would look at that's a dark joke. They would look abstract, but in fact, there would be very close resemblances to like super ancient, iconic imagery that these people would have no possible way of ever knowing or realizing. But they're drawing exact depictions of it. It's part of what helped Jung come to this understanding of the collective unconscious. But the point being is this: that those who are insane, again, perhaps they're only insane from our rational perspective. And as the age of reason, we promote reason, like that's our God, more or less. X, Y, and Z for a number of different reasons. But that's not necessarily the only way to interpret something. And it could be the case that there are deeper connections there that we're just not seeing because we're too sober, we're too rational.
I feel like part of it might be what man is able to take.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
an example I like to use is the dark web. For those of you who aren't too familiar with the dark web houses some of the most disgusting atrocities man has ever seen. There's cannibalism. You can buy drugs there. There's
Hitman.
Yeah, you can hire hitmen. There's child
serious?
Yeah.
There's child pornography there. Unfortunately, there's red rooms where you can literally watch people get executed live, and. So, yeah, some of the most terrible things, but yeah, people go there all the time. And something I always tell people who are interested in going is I say that it's not for the faint of heart. If you go there, you would possibly, you could lose your innocence and be mentally broken just from just going there, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I myself have been to the dark web. I've only gone as far as cannibalism.
Jeez Louise.
Yes. I almost walked into
Only?
The phones are lighting up, folks.
No big deal. He just saw someone eat somebody.
Should we take a call?
No, but No, but the
Very
people.
good on line
No,
one.
but the people.
The CIA are at the door.
No, but the people.
We are being dragged.
There's also. Yeah, dark humor, ladies and gentlemen. So, there's forums in the dark web, and people are super nonchalant about the things they do. They'll be like, "So hey, how would you suggest cooking a human liver?" He's like, "Oh, just season it with lemon pepper. It'll be good." Or he's like, "Hey, how can I break into an ATM?" And they're like super casual about it. Like, "Oh, you could possibly hack into it. I want to suggest cracking it open with a crowbar, bro, though, because got a lot stronger and all that stuff." So, since they're so nonchalant about it, since it's like just a regular part of their lives, would we consider those people insane? Huh?
I see what you're saying.
I think we would, comparatively to ourselves.
Yeah, comparatively to ourselves.
Certainly
But
abnormal.
how about their society? Huh?
Would
And
they
they-
consider us insane though?
No, they do. They call us normies. all
Have
the
you
time,
ever
huh?
tried human? Well, then don't knock it.
Don't knock
If
it
you've tried it, and you don't like it, you're insane. You mean something like that?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, they would call us normies. That's what they would.
Normies.
Okay, so yeah, you also hear this terminology in 4chan all the time, where they call themselves robots or grand wizards or stuff, and they would call us normies. And if we were super attractive, they would call us chads, and the female equivalent would be Stacy. So
Wow, jeez, I'm
Yes.
learning a lot today.
yes, no. I have seen things that most men
funny.
should never have to see in their lifetime. Okay.
Is that when you lost your innocence, Brian?
Anyways, well, no, but Brian, I like this. I like this point. And so tying this back to notions of sanity and what have you, these are human beings who are exhibiting rationality. They're exhibiting logical communication. They're articulate. They are pursuing their projects, to use a Heideggerian term, and yet what they're doing seems to be, I mean, to put it the most politely, countercultural.
No, cannibalism is frowned upon in most societies.
Yeah,
okay?
I absolutely. And again, I don't know anything about the dark web, but I'll say this: it seems as though if it's the product of all of these deeply repressed, abnormal, well, I guess they're not repressed anymore. You might call them suppressed from people, or oppressed maybe. Abnormal, arguably irrational, perhaps immoral ways of behaving. It's tough to figure out exactly what you can tie sanity standards to. I mean, I think it complicates the problem.
No, it definitely does. Like,
Yeah.
I personally kind of struggled with the whole sanity thing because this issue was really highlighted when I dated my ex. I promise I won't yell or anything. I promise.
And now you're the property of government as you're giving such a confidential information that cannot be.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You feel comfortable, go ahead.
Okay, so anyways, so we went to a subreddit called Incel. I do not recommend going there. There's terrible people there. I'll talk about why in a different time. But there was a suicide note there, right? We both read it. When I read it, I was like, welp. When she read it, she was like, "Oh my God, why would you show me this?" And I'm like, "Well, the thing was posted like 5 hours ago, so he's probably already dead." So let's
You deflect comedically, sure.
yeah, exactly. I deflect comedically, and I'm kind of desensitized to a lot of things, and she's not, and yet she considers me the insane one, and it kind of
Do you
got me.
consider her insane?
That's a whole other
Yeah,
topic.
let's not get on that road.
Whole other topic. But you see where, but like the relevant part, you see where I'm getting at, though,
I mean,
right?
she dated him, right? No, anyways, that was a joke. That was
Yes,
a joke.
I know. The point is having understanding and desensitivity to some of the most horrible atrocities that man can ever commit, but yet just treating it like nonchalantly, could that possibly make you insane? Like, if you want a more relatable example, let's look at doctors. Doctors, they have to deal with death on a very, very daily basis. And I've read some things about how some doctors possess some of the darkest humor to cope with those facts.
Shout out House.
Yes. So.
No, I think you're getting so yeah. Because look, I have extended relatives who they're doctors, and yeah, they're like, at a certain point, you kind of just you go into that mode, and you just look at humans as just like bodies,
fixed.
bags of organs, basically. There's some distance due to the desensitizing. I just want to point this out, though. The way we're using the word insane, I think we're using it loosely, really
very
figurative.
much.
And I know we all know this, but I think the way that we're able to use it in certain contexts suggests something about what its clinical strict definition is, at least currently. It's basically somebody who would act in such a way that you cannot rationally grasp the logic behind it. And I think Brian's point is like, who would sit there and look at cannibal videos for 8 hours? Like that's, you might not call that insane, but maybe you can call that person, arguably, or can you call that person disturbed on some level? And is there a distance between, or a distinction rather, a conceptual distance or conceptual proximity between disturbing behavior and insane behavior? Is there, and so when I say disturbing, I don't necessarily mean breaking with the norms, but acting in such a way that is almost universally horrifying, or advocating for, or being party to the promotion of such behavior. It seems to me that if you're insane, you have no concept of rationality, or excuse me, well, maybe that, but no concept of morality.
I think there are levels of insanity. Like, for
Okay.
example,
Or they could be different types.
In Batman, the Joker, I think that was the exceedable limit of insanity.
Which Batman?
The second one, I think. The
Adam
Dark
West.
Knight.
Adam
Well, the one where Jack Nicholson plays the Joker.
Or it's the one where Heath Ledger plays the Joker.
Yeah, Hitler.
Oh, Heath Ledger. That makes sense.
No,
yeah.
but allow me to counter that though, because you talk about like no rationale or anything, but clearly the Joker has some purpose as to why he was doing it. His main purpose was to show how terrible people actually are.
Yeah.
That was his purpose. So clearly there's some logic behind all the madness.
Ah, yes.
So can someone truly be
think it could
insane?
be
Because if we define
different
as
insanity.
yeah, because if we define insanity as they don't have any grasp of logic, don't have any grasp of these things, then clearly they're insane. But some of the most horrific psychopaths in
smart
most
people.
recent memory have had some logic and reasoning behind their acts. Like Elliot
Good at
Rodgers,
it.
for example. I've been reading his manifesto. It's very, very long, by the way.
He's manifesting.
Okay, yeah. He listed the reasons why he did that, and he says that, he was very jealous that, he didn't get enough girlfriends and didn't have, the typical love life. He said that some people didn't deserve what they got, so then...
Sounds like a real Uche.
You are Uche, dude. Come on.
Exactly.
Shut
talk
up a bunch
about
of people.
yourself like that.
Or Dylan Roof, who shot up a historically black church, and his motives were clear. He was a racist and he was a white supremacist. The Columbine case, while they weren't able to try to define a motive as to why they shot up the school, from all the research people have done, there was clearly some level of logic and reasoning as to how they got from deciding to shoot up the school to actually shooting up the school.
Yeah, any action that requires a game plan, again, requires reason, requires logic. But if you want to take in these criminal directions, and I think this came up as well, we're still, I guess, subtly requacking this idea of pleading insanity in a courtroom. Those criminals, they may have done stuff that we would call, figuratively speaking, insane, because who a rational person would act like that? But we say that tongue-in-cheek, knowing that they are rational enough to, again, accomplish the kinds of things that require a sense of reason that, mere animals or feral children couldn't do. And this is why they're found guilty rather than, found to be insane, and therefore not fully human and thus unaccountable for their actions.
So if you were to plead insanity, and for you to successfully plead insanity, would it be like you have no control of the actions that you're doing?
I think that's what it is.
Well,
or maybe I'm not entirely
okay,
sure.
I haven't read too much into it, but when you plead insanity, it's not like they automatically say, okay, you're insane. No, it's an affirmative defense.
Yeah, I
that-
think so, yeah.
It's an affirmative defense, so now the defense has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person is insane and was not able to commit the actions that they committed. And something that they will often resort to is some sort of mental illness.
Yes, exactly. They'll point at, or they'll say, maybe you were intoxicated and caused you momentary insanity, or maybe it's genetic, or maybe they'll have to prove
So
it. You're
if
right.
you
No,
Look at it
no.
that way.
With alcohol, if it was fueled by alcohol, you would most likely get charged with manslaughter.
Yeah, and that's true.
I think these days people justify their insane. I think these days people
shut that.
justify their insane actions based on the situations they have, but that's not the right way to justify it.
So sort of like a scapegoat. They're definitely like a scapegoat.
Yeah, well, I think what it comes down to, we got to throw these headphones out. I think what it comes down to is an inability to justify the actions of somebody suggests that those actions are done by an insane person, if there's no possible way to justify it. My question is this, though, and we're kind of turning a corner here. We only got about 20 minutes left. I want to talk because we didn't get to this yet. What is the connection between madness and genius?
No.
Is there a connection?
Before we get to that, I kind of want to respond to what Ali said.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
About how people try to use insanity to justify it and kind of like a scapegoat. There's a YouTube video that I highly recommend checking out that kind of makes fun of that point. It's called the Goofy Trial.
Shout it out.
It's a video by Filthy Frank, also known as Pink Guy. Where basically Goofy, like the Mickey character, by the way, Goofy goes on trial for killing a bunch of people, and this lawyer keeps telling him, "No, plead insanity, you will get out." But he keeps saying, "No, but I'm not insane though. Here's why I did it. I know what I was doing." He's like, "No, you got to plead insanity."
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend checking it out, but it's also really, really dark. So genius and madness. Uche, would you like to start us off?
I would just say that it could be just two levels of extreme, and the connotations that people. I think that genius and madness. I think that basically any level of sanity requires somebody else to be looking at it to determine where it stands on the spectrum. So you could say, one side of the spectrum is madness, in the middle there is normal, then on the other side of the spectrum is genius. And you have to have someone looking at this spectrum in order for them to determine where someone falls on it. So I would say that madness is the same thing as genius, but with a negative connotation. Genius might be genius. The only reason genius could be genius is because it positively contributes to the society, or it provides more intellect, it provides some type of machinery that revolutionizes the industry, things like that. But a madman would be a person who might be, they're as extreme as a genius, but they just don't contribute to the society, so they are looked at negatively.
So it's destruction rather than innovation.
Yeah.
Right, so then why do we romanticize the geniuses who do have serious mental issues? Like, two examples I can immediately think on top of my head were Nikolai Tesla and Vincent van Gogh. Nikolai Tesla had OCD, and when people talk about it, they talk about it like it's a cute thing, like, oh, he was obsessed with the number 7, oh, he loved birds so much. I'm like, no, there was something seriously wrong with this man, and he needed some help, and everyone just kind of denied him that. And Vincent van Gogh, he's like, oh, he drank yellow paint because he wanted to be happy. He's like, no, he was depressed. He was clinically severely depressed. He wanted to literally die, but yet we treat it off like it's something that's cute.
But you're kind of agreeing there with Nancy, because it's, again, you're quoting people who were positive ultimately. They contributed to mankind. They gave.
But we objectified them. Kind of like Sartre.
Okay.
What we talked about in philosophy class earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
They were relevant to society, so we talk about them as if we leave out all the bad parts. Is what
Like they're our
basically
kids
saying.
or something.
Yes. They're relevant to us, so thus we'll keep them in good light and ignore the fact that they were mentally deranged.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh no, please.
But sometimes, like, geniuses who are contributing to the society they're called mad people too, just because the society can't see at the time that they're actually contributing. And there are a lot of examples of this, but I can't think of any right
Wait,
now.
The guy that said the world was round.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I
they
was
thought,
talking
they
about.
thought he
He's
was a madman, but he was actually a genius, and he discovered it really,
Well, actually, the world is not round.
All right, we can.
It's a
If you
half-
show it to the camera
The
later.
world is yours.
But something that I would like to touch on is, so the playing for insanity. I think that I don't really have the 100% grasp on it, but I would think that for someone to successfully plea insane, that they would have to be able to prove that they could not control their actions. So I think that could be called, or that could be what insanity is though we have conscious minds, we control our bodies, but if a person is not able to control themselves, then they can be insane for that instance. Like how you touched on J.K. something, the comedian that said he defined what hilarious.
Oh yeah, Louis C.K.
Louis
Yeah.
C.K. He said
Hilarious.
that something being hilarious is it's so funny that you lose your mind for a
Lose your
second.
mind.
You can't control, like, if someone tells you a funny joke, a hilarious joke, you're not going to be like, that joke's funny, I'm going to laugh for 35 seconds. No, it just happens naturally. It's something that you can't control. Your body.
If my students are listening, every time I've ever said a joke, you understand the scenario.
Yeah, your mind is taken away by the emotion of the laughter, or the emotion. It's your body is reacting, but your mind is just along for the ride. And something like this, when we had the example of a person walking in on his wife, cheating on him, or like impulse murders or impulse killings and stuff. You see the external stimuli. It snaps something in your brain. You kind of, it's your emotion is controlling your body instead of your consciousness, and then that could be instance of insanity, where it's kind of like a scale. Your mind is on a scale, and emotion is on one side, and then logic is on the other side, and you're constantly trying to balance it, but you see something, and then emotion starts tipping the scale, and you act based off that imbalance, and you could say that is an action based off insanity.
Yeah,
But
that's how the court sees it, though, too. Because again, if I'll just say this and move on. The defense for most people, insanity-wise, it hinges on whether or not what they did was impulsive. If they can find premeditation, then you can't call them insane. That's all.
no, no. But what I would like to say about that though is back to the old scale example. What if logic outweighs emotion? Would we call that insane?
I think you could call that desensitizing, where
No, but what we call this desensitization insane. So let me give you an example. Okay, so Dennis Reynolds, sociopath.
Shout out, it's always sunny.
Yes, shout out to Always Sunny. He has everything logically planned out when he does these terrible. Well, not they always backfire though. Okay,
Yeah.
but he has all these things logically planned out. He's carefully considered everything, but he never takes emotion into account of anything, and is always ready to sell out his friends, belittle his sister, or even he's also a possible rapist and serial killer.
Jeez
but
Louise.
that's another way. But he logically thinks about all this stuff.
And this is a fictional character.
Yes, it's a fictional character, and he justifies all of it with logic and reasoning. So,
Yeah.
and since he's committing inhumane acts, but not on impulse, but rather through
could that be
premeditation,
also insane?
yeah, could that also be insane if logic outweighs emotion?
Mhm.
I think that's sociopathology.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if a person is calling themselves as an insane person, so is that
I
person
don't think that would be
insane?
insane.
No, but
If
insane.
a person
think
is
that- I
accepting
think
that
that's
they
insane
are
too.
insane,
Oh.
would you call that person insane?
Well, the insanity plea is one giant oxymoron if you think about it. For one, insane people don't know they're insane, so they would not plead insanity to something they don't truly believe. So it's kind of like a scapegoat for them.
Yeah.
And
Well, they call it temporary insanity.
yeah, or something like that,
Yeah.
but still, it's one
You're right.
giant scapegoat.
Sort of,
Now, on top
yeah.
of that, when you're trying to prove that a person was insane, you're trying to find the method within their madness, which is just one giant paradox.
Yeah.
But for the instance of logic outweighing emotion, I don't think you could call that insane. I think the core of being insane is that you have no control of your own will. You're doing things based off some other instance, some other emotion, or something's pushing you, and you can't control it consciously. I think that's what insane would be. For logic outweighing the emotion, I think that could be. I don't really know. I don't think it's the same as insanity. It's kind of like a desensitization. But I feel like as long as you're in control of your own behavior, you can't be called insane.
But okay, what about this? So someone is like, I think we talked about this yesterday, like madly in love, and let's
Oh, yeah.
say the girl or the guy breaks up with the other one, then he goes or she goes insane. So I think the only factor here is the emotion, right? So the logic isn't into play. So he is insane. What about like he is capable of thinking, then he's like he can reason and rationalize everything, but
It's appeal to the millennials.
like now he can't like feel anything. I think I agree with Brian. I think this is still like being insane if you can't control your emotions too.
Yeah, I think, guys, here's.
So why are you guys making a standard for insanity that a person is only insane if they don't accept it? What if a person is accepting and is still insane? How about that?
Well, I know. We're going all over
How
the
about
place
that?
for the past hour now.
That's what we do.
Yes, that's what we. And as I mentioned earlier, we couldn't really find a definitive definition for what constitutes as sanity or insanity. But to answer your question, I feel like it's more of a societal standards. I don't think they take into account what the person thinks about themselves. Like, oh, I don't think I'm crazy. I don't think. No, it's like, well, that doesn't matter. We think you're crazy. Therefore, you are crazy. Huh? And
But you can see how that could become problematic. I mean, if when you check yourself into a mental ward, especially if you're suicidal, which was our topic from last week, they won't let you out, even if you tell them no, I'm okay now. I'm good. I'm over it. It was, my girlfriend dumped me or whatever, but now I'm cool. They still,
We'll keep going. Go on.
Rip.
they,
Rest in peace.
sorry,
Rip in
the,
peace.
the ghost in the studio here just tried to do a nollie nose grind dark
Terrible.
side
I
slide.
think there are different personality types which are sometimes not understandable. So we can be sometimes too judgmental and say that that person is not sane enough based on everyone else around. But I think we cannot make that statement that easily, that based on a certain standards a person is not sane.
I think
I
that's
can-
exactly how we do it.
No,
Yeah,
exactly. Because
Sadly.
yeah,
or
no,
maybe
yeah.
not.
That's the unfortunate thing about society. We like to put everything in boxes. So instead of trying to fully comprehend something, we just make up a box and we dump people in it. This
Not
person's
porn.
crazy. This crazy. Yes, exactly. This person's not porn. This person is porn. Not porn. Porn. Not okay. I'm joking. I'm joking.
That's an,
obviously.
that's an inside joke.
I should go as
Talk to the debate club.
I should go as judging me right now.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. No, but
Okay.
no, but yeah, society is very judgmental, and that's something, unfortunately, that we cannot ever change. Like even all
That's
of
just
us,
how
in,
people work.
yeah, all of us in this room are judgmental.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Yes,
Don't
you
judge
are.
me.
Yeah. Let me wait. Let me ask
Correct.
you. Let me ask you this. Do you think
I,
that
Jeffrey Manzi, am a very judgmental person.
Do you
I'm
think-
judging
make that my ringtone every time I text you? I think. Well, let me ask you guys this. Okay, so if you can become clinically insane to the point where you're beyond rehabilitation, so it's not a temporary thing like you hear about in courts. This is it. This is you, and you might even think Alzheimer's, something along these lines. Does society have an obligation to care for them, and why? Is it in their best interest?
An unpopular opinion, really, really is. If you are so mentally broken that you are past a point in which you could be fixed or even treated, I think they should put you down. No.
Wow, harsh words directed at Uche.
Yes. No, okay, no, like, okay, hear me out. Okay, so I remember when we mentioned feral children in our discussion a couple of weeks back, I jokingly said, oh God, when I said, I forgot what feral child she was talking about, but this woman is still alive and being taken care of by an assistant or something like that, right? And I jokingly said, oh, she's dead. He's like, no, she's alive. He's like, no, yeah, but she's probably dead on the inside.
Interesting.
Yes, and I basically what I'm trying to say is being mentally insane is no way to live.
Or if you can't live your life as a human where you're consciously in control of yourself, then it seems like you are already dead.
Yeah, so you might as well be actually dead. Now, people think that's inhumane. People think it'll be too expensive, but I found the perfect solution for that issue. So Mexicans need jobs, right? People need to die.
Whoa, okay.
People need
triggered.
to die. Yes.
Views expressed on the shore.
Yes.
Brian's own.
Yeah, people need to die. So why not we bring back the Mexican firing squad?
That's the
think-
darkest of all the jokes.
I think the crux of the matter is the circumstances. They change a person in ways that we cannot even think. So, like, if someone is giving a logical reason for their insanity, maybe they are right based on their circumstances or experiences they have faced. But we cannot understand. We cannot even understand from where they are coming. What do you say about that?
That was beautiful grammar, is what I say about that. From where they are coming. But here's what I say about that. I think this is kind of getting at the example I brought up earlier, where it seems like on some level, maybe those who are no longer rationally insane are potentially still human insofar as things are still meaningful to them. They're still reacting to things, even if it's not
Well, that's
quote
the
unquote
same
rational.
for an animal.
But I don't know. Well, is it? That's the question. Is that maybe somebody who was
definitely-
once rational, you can still make associations, which requires some degree of rationality. Just the associations themselves might not make as much sense unless you look deeper or in a different light, in a way a genius would need to look at it. I think it's like this, guys. The reason. Well, let me say this. Why then do we keep? Why do we maintain people who are permanently
Because
clinically
they're
insane?
people.
No, because people value life, and
Or qualities of life,
Yeah.
or just life.
yeah, no, I feel like they value just life,
Human
period.
life.
Because it reminds. I want to start by apologizing for that joke earlier.
No, it's fine.
I felt like I crossed like too many.
Lots,
You're good.
lots of jokes in the show.
Yes. So Who in here? There's this episode. It's a season 1 episode of Breaking Bad, so it's not like in super heavy spoiler
I've
territory.
never seen Breaking Bad.
Okay.
I've only seen a few episodes.
Okay, so the protagonist, Walter White, has lung cancer, right? And he's trying to hide it from his family. And his family slowly figures this out and has an intervention. You know, they pass a talking pillow. It's kind of funny. And finally, the talking pillow goes to him, right? And his entire family just says, no, it's selfish that you want to die. It's selfish that you want to keep it to yourself. We care about you. We want you to keep living, right? And he says this beautiful monologue, which is why I believe what I believe. I can't state it from memory, but to paraphrase it, he says, people act like living is the only thing that matters. He says that he has a low chance of surviving this cancer, and if he does, right, he will constantly be on medication. He will constantly feel so tired and so worn out. It will be very difficult for him to wake up in the morning and just to constantly keep thinking, oh, I might die soon, I might die soon, I might die way sooner than most people would die. And he says that's not a way to live. So there's more to life than life.
Yeah.
So my question is, how far can you be considerate with a person who you think is insane? How far can you go with that?
How far would I go with dealing with a person who
Yeah.
I think is so... Well, as you mentioned earlier, it heavily depends on context. If we're talking about temporary insanity, then the person might need some serious psychological help. But if we're talking if they are permanently mentally broken, then... I don't know how to respond to that. At least in a way that makes sense, because I already have my beliefs. I'm just trying to find a way to properly articulate it.
Well, I think the other thing is this, guys. I mean, you never know what the future might hold. There might be some mad genius who discovers a way to cure this, and if fortunately, they're still alive and they can be cured. I mean, that's a possibility.
Wait, but can we cure insanity though? Huh?
That's the question. What kind of sickness is it?
So
When did we start calling it a sickness?
do emotionally instability comes in insanity?
Does emotional instability
Yeah.
or instability come with insanity?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a. Put it this way. I think yes, but it's not to say that is a necessary indicator. I know a lot of have emotionally unstable people, but they're not insane.
They are good actors then.
Perhaps.
Good actor.
So guys, we got to wrap up. It's 3:00 right now.
Flat.
And we got a few shout outs to do as well.
Well, that's all, folks.
But yeah, I would just say this. It seems as though for somebody to be able to critically assess a community and its norms, you need to be able to remove yourself therefrom. You need to be able to step outside the boundaries of the norms. It seems like those who are insane have found a permanent exit pass from that, and perhaps they can't get back. That is, I'll just leave it at that, perhaps. And there's a lot more to say on this topic, but I love the way this conversation went, the contributions.
Would Sartre say that people who plead insanity are not taking responsibility?
Maybe they are taking responsibility.
I think that's what he was saying. It would depend on the circumstance.
Yeah.
If that's, I mean, they need to take responsibility for allowing themselves to lose themselves in the moment.
Yeah.
In the music, you want it. You're gonna never let it go.
Stop.
All right, so guys, you were listening to the Philosophy Club Radio Hour at KDOX Web Radio. We're gonna do some shout outs real quick, and again, feel free to shout out your own clubs and organizations. Things.
Okay, I have a last question.
Well, give me.
Out of a level of 10, how can we number ourselves how sane we are based on a level of
Can you
10?
quantify
No,
it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a scale. I think it's a spectrum.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
I'm a good 11.
And so let me
That's
just say this.
considered insane.
The Philosophy Club meets every Tuesday from 2 to 3 in EO 76. We're still considering next week's topic, but we had one strong suggestion. Do we know? What was that
The
you said?
suggestion was given by Kai and Jed. It was, is war in our nature or is war natural for us as
Okay.
human beings?
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So is war in our nature? Is it a part of us to be combative inherently? Good one. I like that. And so again, continuing, guys, you're listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We're the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on the show are our own, unless otherwise stated, and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or Jack Fletcher, or the DCCCD. Real quick, guys, some shout out. Well, you know what? Let me thank my guests first of all. I think this is a really cool kind of collection of perspectives here, which always makes for a great conversation.
Gracias, Brian.
I,
Gracias, Aishagul. Gracias, Ali.
Yes.
Thank you, Uche, for coming.
Professor, let me just say this, and this is coming from me, Uche. I've always wanted to tell you, Professor Manzi, what a huge impact you are in my life, and how just you're like a shining light in this community of ignorant people. I mean, it's just amazing. And so I really want to thank you for inspiring me.
Too much
and
of
for-
a good is also a
and-
bad thing.
And
I just heard it from somewhere. I don't know why I said.
anyways,
You can't just cut Uche off like that.
yeah, seriously. He's
Well,
the,
he
I'm
just
the
did.
president.
So
Okay, guys,
President.
real quick, the Philosophy Club's got a fundraiser coming up, the details of which Professor Manzi are about to tell you.
November 17th, fundraiser, Philosophy Club. Be there or be square. We're going to be selling pizza, pizzas, popcorn, soda, and Philosophy Club designer
wait,
T-shirts.
is it a new design? Or
Oh
is it-
no! We're selling the remainder ones from the last fundraiser, and then next year we're gonna come up with a new design for the next year.
Alrighty
Yeah,
then.
don't be a square, go get a triangle. 'Cause we're
Yeah,
selling pizza.
triangle.
You're not
Yeah,
funny.
we're done
You're
at
not
this.
funny.
Hey,
Let's go.
there is
Hey,
no
guys,
limit.
I'm just trying to impress Professor Manzi here.
No problem, man. You're doing a great job.
Thanks, appreciate it. And
I
the
can't swear right now.
the philosophy, guys, this is another cool
The sane philosophy
opportunity.
club.
This club's insane. The philosophy student conference here at Richland is going to be happening. I want to say on November 3rd. I'm instantly thinking that might be incorrect. Put it this way, guys. The philosophy student conference is going to be happening pretty soon. There are 9 available slots. If you would like to present at a philosophy conference, we're the only school in the district that does this. If you want to cut your teeth on what it's like to be a professional sort of scholar and get up there and read something that you wrote, something that you feel, very competent on, and you want to talk about it and share with other people in a very professional environment, this is a supremely awesome opportunity for
It
that.
can be anything.
It could, typically, we're looking for papers that come from this semester's class, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Anything that you've written philosophically that you feel strongly about and has been sort of vetted by a professor, we're looking for that. It's an all-day affair, which is great. So you can come in, catch a couple presentations, leave. There are refreshments. I remember I attended last year for the first time, and it was unbelievable. It's like the place was packed, and students were excited. They got to really, show and prove, so to speak. This is what I think, and here's why, and here's what I have to say on it. And when you're presenting on your own paper, you're more or less kind of the expert in the room on it. So you can field questions and get a sense of that. I highly recommend my students to submit. Either you can submit it to me at gmanzi@dcccd.edu or Louisa Benton, the department chair, LBENTON at dcccd.edu. Yeah, definitely get at us. We had a great one last year. We're looking forward to another awesome one this year.
I have questions.
It's going to be in Sabine Hall, by the way.
So it could be on anything.
So yeah, I mean, we try to typically when we have to make our selections, we look for sort of like a theme to kind of run across it. But yeah, theoretically, it could be on anything.
Anything.
Anything that's philosophically
I wouldn't say that
robust.
to Brian
Not
because
No, I should
We
go
have a
and have a
nice,
discussion.
yeah, we had
Brian
this
alert.
discussion and he has crazy ideas about the philosophy of something that I really don't want to say.
Does it
right
start
now.
with the P?
Yes.
Does it end with an N?
Oh yeah.
Is it not porn?
Not funny anymore.
Okay.
Guys, I don't get it. I'm not in on the joke, ladies and gentlemen, so I don't know what to talk about. But anyways, I imagine it has something to do with the deep web. Yeah, that box they're carrying around.
Dark web, by the way.
Anyways, whatever
It's
it
called
is.
all types of things.
Anyhow, guys, one more shout out as well.
The Menzi show.
Shout out Nick from the first season of the Philosophy Club.
Well, that was random. Why?
Because he's cool. I was going through the emails and I saw him on the list, so he's cool.
Yeah, shout out
Nikolai,
Nick.
shout
Yeah,
out.
Nick-
Nikolai's
should
Nikolai's my
make-
neighbor,
We should
Really?
change
He lives,
the
like, right
name
next
of
door to
the
me.
show.
Shout out Ashley, Lindsay, etc., etc., etc.
Hey, is Ashley watching this?
Maybe.
Hi, Ashley.
Mario came to yesterday's meeting, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
she
shout
is.
out Mario.
Yeah,
Mario
I
was
bumped into
awesome.
him on the way out.
Go ahead, do your last shout out.
Yeah, so the last shout out then, the Philosophy Club is going to be sponsoring a booth coming up at an event sponsored by the student.
Christian counseling services.
Thank you very much, Student Counseling Services. It's called, well, it's basically to raise awareness and alleviate the negative stigma of mental illness, interestingly enough.
Yeah, it's
so
called the
it's-
Fresh Check Day, and it's going to be
Thank you.
on November 7th in
Excellent.
the East Breezeway, I guess. And clubs or organizations will have their booth, and they each will have a theme. Like, what is yours?
We are the chill out booth. So come
Okay.
chill
Are you
out
really?
with the Philosophy Club.
Okay,
Yeah.
ours
Really?
is like be
That's pretty cool.
yourself, so it's going to be
have
for the
beanbags.
LGBTQ community and how we could, we will talk to them, and we will have some goodies on our table. I don't know about yours.
We're bringing in
Nice.
we're bringing in puppies. The people can
Ah.
stroke and calm themselves down. Huh? I think well here's the thing.
Phrasing.
We are the chill out booth, so we have to come up with something chill. Like the point
Yeah.
is to get people to sort of
Relax.
be okay with their stress and what have you. Yeah. So anything you guys can come up with.
Yeah, so November 7th at East Breezeway, I guess, and it's called the Fresh Check Day.
Is that
Yeah.
on campus?
Yeah.
To be on campus. It's only gonna be for a few hours though, right?
Yeah, it's from 11 to 1.
11 to 1, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, look out for that, guys. It's going to be a good one. Okay, I'd like to thank my guests, most especially Professor Manzi for just being his awesome self.
No problem.
Um,
It's hard.
guys, no, but seriously, this was a great conversation. I appreciated it. Look out for next week's topic as well as next week's discussions. And I'll say this: I know we've been lagging a little bit on social media. We're about to be picking that up again. So look out for us. Get at us on Facebook. Search for Richland Philosophy Club on Facebook and like our page. Like our page and send us topics for on our wall. And then of course we have our Twitter handle at RLC Philosophy. Feel free to spread that far and wide and retweet. Our posts that are informative about what's coming up, as well as we're sharing these very programs that come out through Richland Student Media's social media handles. So yeah, that sounds good. Final thoughts on sanity? Anything? Anything?
That's insane, man.
Yeah, I believe it was a video game character that once said, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
And here I am yet again hosting a Philosophy Club radio show. All right, guys, it's been great.
Nice.
Have a good one, and stay tuned for Rock Shop next. And think about it.
Davis.